It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, I'm really excited about a special guest that we have, a woman business owner, entrepreneur who's making an impact in the fashion world. Sarah Carson from Leota Design. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And tell us a little bit about what your company is, and then how in the world you got started in this.
Well, Leota is a women's apparel brand that I launched 5 years ago with the concept of making the most comfortable, versatile, wear everywhere fashion on the market. And for some reason, there wasn't a fashion brand making clothes for women who were out there doing it all. And I thought, well, why not me? And at the time, I was an investment banker. So
yeah,
I worked on Wall Street.
I have to tell you this. I love this about when I read, your bio and read about you and did my own research. I was like, yes, love women. You come out of Wall Street and, it's hard enough for a woman to conquer Wall Street, but it's like, okay, been there, done that. I'm ready now. That prepped me for.
Totally. I mean, my parents taught me that I should be passionate about my career, and I fully expected to totally love it. And so when I hit a bit of a plateau in that career, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to make a move. And I wanted to have a business where I could really do it my way, where I could create a problem-solving product for women, and we could basically do the right thing. So, we don't have to make compromises about how we're producing the product. We're going to make it ethically right here in the U.S. We're going to make sure that our core values are strong within the company. And so I basically went from having tons of support where there was assistance for the assistants on the Wall Street job to having it be like literally just me. And I had this great concept for this like vibrant print-driven fashion line. No resource. I've never even worked at a store, so I have literally no idea about fashion. So I kind of like got off the 2 train in the garment district with my samples and just started like following fabric delivery people around the garment district to try and figure out how to get this made. And I think that figure it out attitude and approach is what's made us such a successful, fast growing company in this like super old school arena of fashion.
And, so I have to ask, because, being a business strategist and a planner by nature, okay, and that's a personal me. Mm-hmm. Did you, you're saying, okay, got off the 2 train and started following people who had, bolts rolling the garment center of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Did you create, and now you have a financial background, did you create a business plan? Like, did you say like, okay, we're going to do this. Where's our capital? What was your process here?
Well, I started out with a great idea in a market niche that I knew was not being filled by anybody else. So I had to really have a reason for existing with the business. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I had to move really fast. And I didn't have a full blown out business plan. I had some savings from my old career, and I didn't have to work for about a year. And I gave myself a timeline. It was like, let me try and figure this out over the next year. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I'll go, back to this old job. And one thing is that the expenses kind of ramp up slowly. And by focusing on my customer and focusing on sales as opposed to, like, I know a lot of businesses that are fashion companies that are no longer in business because, maybe they spent a lot of money to get on the cover of Vogue magazine, but they've never sold one single item. And so, that's totally appalling to me. And so I think having I've always been really prudent as a bootstrap business. And I think that's what's made us profitable all these years.
So one thing that I'm hearing you saying is you focused, as opposed to the cachet of the company, you focused on your customer. And your customer came first at every turn. Hence, the profitability worked with that, aligned with it.
Yeah. To me, the biggest cachet is making my customer feel good. Yeah. That's the whole point. So I think that's really a different approach to fashion than a lot of brands take.
I hear you. I hear you. You know, for years I sold to some of the biggest fashion magazines in New York City, W and Harper's Bazaar and a few others. Mm-hmm. So I definitely, I so respect what you're saying, truly to the core. So tell us about, you know, you started this company in 2010. Mm-hmm. Am I getting my numbers right?
Yep, I had the idea in 2010 over a few glasses of wine with my sister and my mom, and they were like, you need to go for this. This is your passion. And so I did, and we've had a lot of successes, but a lot of challenges.
So that was an interesting time to bootstrap a business. You're just coming out of a financial downturn economy. You know, the economy is coming back. How did you start navigating as far as, what have you learned or any advice you give to others in bootstrapping a business? What were some of your biggest learning curves in that?
Well, the great thing about starting when the economy is at the absolute bottom is that it can only get better from there. So,
touche.
And so that, you know, that really wasn't an issue. I think I wouldn't, there's always a better way to do something. And so I really encourage you, if you have a good idea, like go out and do it, and don't let wherever we are in the economy affect that. I think one important thing is to not really be afraid to fail. I think that we never really know our limits unless we really push them. And I got told no like approximately 1 billion times. And what motivates me is getting, like, the no is kind of like the first step. Like, for example, I went in and pitched Nordstrom at one point early on, and they were like, no, this is like, we already have this covered. We don't need this. And I was, of course, bummed out and questioned myself. And it's like, oh, maybe there's no market for this, blah, blah, blah. But then, you know what? I went in the next year, that same office, the same exact product, and their perception had totally changed. And the buyers were like, this is perfect. We want to buy the whole entire line. Let's do this. You're the next, you know, greatest thing in fashion. And I just had to chuckle to myself, because it was just the perfect example of how the first no leads to one of the biggest businesses in the industry.
So clearly there's a piece of advice here. Is one of the things I work with my clients on is no is just a translation for not yet, not ready, not now. It's not a no forever.
I love that.
So is there a greatest success you would like to share with our listeners? Because you shared, you know, I love that, you know, one of the Nordstrom said no. So guess what? 365 days later, I showed back up and it's like, hi, me again.
Right.
So there's, you know, we always look at, you know, successes and obstacles and challenges and how we navigate growing a business that's going to be here for the long haul.
Totally. I mean, it's shockingly hands-on growing a startup business, and it gets less and less so, and it gets easier. Believe me, guys, it gets a lot easier over time. So hang in there. But one of my biggest successes was, after all those late nights and like hand packing orders and walking through blizzards to make sure that our package got to FedEx on time, or like hand moving all of our entire fabric collection during Hurricane Sandy because our factory was in the flood zone, like through all of that, to have gotten listed on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing companies in America for 2 years in a row was very validating for a bootstrap business like ours, because we see a lot of our peers, they've gotten a lot of injection of capital, which is amazing, but then, you know, there are compromises that have to be made when that happens. And I was very proud to be recognized as this fast-growing women-owned company that is like super empowering and feminist, made in the USA, with core values of our company really central to what we do. You know, that a company like ours can be working with these top retailers that are disruptive in the business, like the subscription companies and the wardrobe rental companies. It was very meaningful for me to get that recognition after all that hard work and everything that we overcome. But, you know, it's really just the beginning. I found that with successful people, have you ever noticed, Ivy, they never really make it. Like as soon as you achieve one thing, you're already on to the next goal. And so we can't forget to celebrate the wins sometimes when we get them. You got to do that for you. You've got to do that for your team. But you're never really there. So I really had to fall in love with the process because you never really make it.
And I cannot agree with you more. When you reach, if you're waiting to reach success, you're going to be done and complete. If you're looking to enjoy the ride of success, you know, it's, you know, it sounds like you're from the New York area. So if you go back to good old roller coasters, even in Coney Island or wherever our listeners are with good old roller coasters, you're going to have some ups, some downs, some turns. And the joy and the success is in the entire ride, not just in the ups.
That's so true, Ivy.
So,
and sometimes when I'm going through a challenging time, I always tell myself, like, okay, someday this is going to be a funny story.
I could ask you for a tip, but I would say, you know, that is one of the greatest is when is in facing struggle, in facing, and I don't know, I almost want to change the word struggle into the challenges of, and it's not, sometimes it's running our business. Sometimes it's the challenges that we're faced with life as we're running our business. Is just know, mark it on the calendar and then mark the day that turns into the funny story.
I love that.
So any surprises that has happened during this journey?
You know, one surprise that is honestly how easy and obvious it can be sometimes to make a difference for a customer and to do better if you think about it that way.
So tell me more.
Well, like, for example, when it comes to like optimizing service for customers, like we worked with our warehouse and we have this huge warehouse that has like all the technology in the world. And they were like, well, return processing is going to take 5 days. And, you know, we went along with that, you know, for a couple months. And then at one point I was like, why does the return processing have to take 5 days? And they kind of walked me through that. And we realized just by talking about it for 10 minutes that we could strip out like 3 days of that processing time. And sometimes it's just a matter of having that, it's just an example of how sometimes it's having that orientation of like, how can I make this faster? How can I make this better? It's like, so it can be surprisingly easy. I mean, if you take one of our best-selling styles, our perfect wrap dress at Leota, I don't know if you guys have ever worn wrap dresses before, but they're so flattering. This fit and flare style, like looks good on everybody, super comfortable. But in my old job at the bank, they're amazing. I would be wearing these dresses that
people who travel for business, they are the greatest packing item you could have.
They're the best. They're wrinkle free. I mean, the Lyoto ones are wrinkle free. They're machine washable. They're super packable, and versatile. Like you can wear them literally everywhere. But I found that in my old career, I'd have these wrap dresses and I would be going to the bathroom like 7 times a day to re-tie the thing because it'd be falling off and it's just, they're unwearable. And so we made this very simple change to the traditional wrap dress by making it a popover style that's not gonna, that it's a faux wrap. You don't have to like tie it and untie it. And it's like something so easy like that can make something so much more wearable for your customer. I think that's one way that we really made our customers' lives easier. Just like, hey, this is wearable. I feel good. You know, all these stupid things about getting dressed, like it's unflattering, you know, it falls off, it's inappropriate. We've stripped all that out and just offered her something that's super wearable no matter what she's doing. So I guess the surprising thing is just how easy and obvious it is to improve things if you really have an orientation that way as a business person.
And you know what I'm hearing you say, Sarah, which is near and dear to my heart, being willing to ask questions and look at what's working and what's not.
Totally.
So in the same way you went to your warehouse and it's like they gave you their process and you went along with it because you cut a deal, right? And then you're willing to say, okay, let me ask some questions and what can happen if I'm willing to ask? And in the same way, you looked at, gee, you know, you wore a wrap dress in finance. I've worn wrap dresses. And I know the one thing, I get what you're talking about, because when I present, won't wear a wrap dress on stage unless it's yours, because very simply, I can't have things gapping or getting loose, or it's poor form. And you continually are showing up and looking at solutions. You know, what I hear you say, and what you're saying to our listening, is you're just show up daily and say, okay, I'm not looking for problems, I'm looking for solutions every day.
Yeah. And I wake up every day and I'm like, two things. One, how can I be a better Sarah today? Because you know what? It's a constant process of learning and being a better leader, being a better decision maker, staying cool under pressure. I mean, we're never done, right? It's a lifelong pursuit. But then also, what meaningful improvement am I going to make today? And it's surprising if I get every single person on my team focused on moving the ball forward in one way, you know, over the next day, week, month, quarter. You can make a lot of progress.
So I love that you shared earlier that, you know, your mom and your sister over a glass of wine said, go for it. You know?
Yeah.
So you're clearly tied to family. Has there been any other significant relationships in your career or in your life that helped get you that gumption, or has made any kind of impact?
Well, definitely my family have been so influential. They were like, go do this. They were very supportive. And you know what? If they ever had any questions about what I was doing, they just talked to each other about it instead of to me, which I so appreciate.
There's a lesson there.
Advice to the families out there. Yeah. But when I was very young, I studied Chinese Kung Fu. So I was a professional martial artist for several years as a youth. And I ended up being very accomplished in that field. I mean, I'm 5'3". I'm like the tiniest person, especially at that time. But I ended up being the 2-time national champion, and I competed on the USA team that went to the world tournament. And it was slightly unlikely that you would have this kind of feminine, short, 15-year-old woman becoming meaningful on this kind of world stage in this very male-dominated environment. I think that was an early lesson in like, look, it doesn't matter what you look like, you know, you can figure this out. And so I got used to it very early, overcoming things. But one of my teachers there, my master, really was willing to do whatever it took to help me succeed. So at one point, I'm practicing. I had gotten my brown belt, and I just hated jumping. I couldn't jump. Couldn't jump high no matter what I did. And he kept telling me, you've got to practice your jump kicks. And I would practice and it wasn't working. So finally he was like, Sarah, I think you're afraid of heights. And so he got down on his hands and knees and he was like, you're going to run. You're going to jump off my back into the air and do your flying jump kicks. And I was like, and this is a very hierarchical environment. Okay. You don't typically jump off your teacher's back in martial arts. Okay. And it really taught me a lesson that, like, you know what? If you want to be successful and you want to help people achieve things, you've got to be willing to get on your hands and knees, do whatever it takes to make it happen, and never be too good or too fancy or too cool to do what needs to be done to be successful.
Well, I would normally ask for a last tip, but I think we got that. You know, don't let anything stop you. When you want something, go for it, jump for it, leap for it. And clearly what you also have shared is be willing to continue to ask questions. Don't sit back. You know, you've spearheaded this company and you're taking it to amazing heights because you're willing to show up, not just do the work, but ask the questions, and you have a clear consciousness of your customer and what's important for them, and they come first no matter what. So hats off to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Ivy.
Well, tell everyone where they can check out your entire line. Of course, I am personally going to clearly recommend the wrap dress because I'm a huge fan of wrap dresses. I have several in my closet. I will always have several in my closet. They go in my luggage when I travel. They're easy to wear. They're non-wrinkle. If you need a salesperson, just ask me. But
clearly,
let everybody else know where they can find your amazing line.
Great. Well, please go to leota.com.
And that is spelled, you'll see it in the show notes, but it's Leota.com, Leota.com, and you will see an amazing, easy to wear line. And, that's really been developed by a woman who has a life that's been on the go in New York City and made it for us real women, who are on the go women and movers and shakers and building things. So,
yep, exactly.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ivy. It was a pleasure.
We'll talk soon. Everybody, remember, it's www.leota.com, and we'll see you on the next one.